I stood in front of the mirror in my bridal suite, adjusting the delicate lace veil that cascaded down my shoulders. My heart raced, not from nerves, but from sheer excitement. Today was the day I had dreamed of since I was a little girl. The day I would marry Marcus King. The man who had swept me off my feet with his charm, intelligence, and unwavering love. The room buzzed with energy as my bridesmaids fussed over final details. Simone, my best friend since college, leaned in close to fix a stray curl that had escaped the intricate updo. "Girl, you look stunning," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Marcus is gonna lose his mind when he sees you." I smiled at her reflection in the mirror, my chest swelling with happiness. Marcus. Just the thought of him made my heart skip a beat. He was everything I had ever wanted in a man, handsome, successful, kind, and devoted. Everyone who met him said we were the perfect couple, and I believed it too. As the wedding coordinator knocked on the door to announce it was time, my bridesmaids formed a protective circle around me, straightening my dress and fluffing the train. Simone handed me my bouquet of white roses and lilies, their fragrance calming my nerves. The walk down the aisle felt like a dream. The church was packed with family and friends, their faces glowing with joy. Marcus stood at the altar, looking dashing in his tailored black tuxedo. His eyes locked on mine, and the world seemed to fade away. When I reached him, he took my hands in his grip warm and reassuring. "You're breathtaking," he whispered, his voice low enough for only me to hear. The ceremony was beautiful, filled with heartfelt vows and promises of forever. As Marcus slid the diamond-studded wedding band onto my finger, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace and certainty. This was it. This was the beginning of our happily ever after. The reception was just as magical. The grand ballroom of the downtown hotel was transformed into a fairy tale, with twinkling lights, cascading floral arrangements, and a live jazz band that kept the guests dancing well into the night. Marcus stayed by my side, his arm wrapped protectively around my waist as we greeted guests and posed for endless photos. At one point, he leaned down to whisper in my ear, "I can't wait to have you all to myself tonight." Words sent a shiver down my spine, and I blushed, feeling like the luckiest woman in the world. As the night wore on, I found myself surrounded by friends and family, all singing Marcus's praises. My mother pulled me aside, her eyes glistening with tears of happiness. "You've chosen a good man, Tamara," she said, squeezing my hand. "He's everything I prayed for you to have." I nodded, my heart full. Marcus truly was a good man. He had gone out of his way to make me feel special, planning the perfect proposal, involving me in every wedding decision, and always making me feel like his top priority. When it was finally time to leave, Marcus took my hand and led me to the sleek black limousine waiting outside. The guests cheered and threw rose petals as we drove away, their laughter and well wishes ringing in my ears. In the car, Marcus pulled me close, his lips brushing against my temple. "Are you happy?" he asked, his voice soft and full of emotion. I looked up at him, my heart bursting with love. "Happier than I've ever been," I replied, meaning every word. As we arrived at the luxurious hotel where we would spend our honeymoon night, I couldn't help but marvel at how perfect everything was. The grand lobby sparkled with chandeliers, and the staff greeted us with warm smiles, congratulating us as they escorted us to the honeymoon suite. The suite was breathtaking, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline, a plush king-sized bed draped in silk sheets, and a bottle of champagne chilling on the table. Marcus wrapped his arms around me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder. "Welcome to our forever," he whispered, and I closed my eyes, savoring the moment. After the whirlwind of the day, the quiet of the suite felt surreal. Marcus poured us both glasses of champagne, his movements fluid and confident. I stood by the window, gazing out at the city lights twinkling below. Everything felt like a dream, a perfect ending to a perfect day. He walked over, handing me a glass, and I turned to face him. His eyes softened as he looked at me, and for a moment I felt like the only woman in the world. We clinked glasses, and he leaned in, brushing a tender kiss against my lips. "To us," he said, his voice rich and velvety. "To forever," I replied, smiling. We talked for a while, reminiscing about the day and laughing over small moments we hadn't had time to savor earlier. It felt good, easy, natural, like we'd been doing this forever. But then Marcus glanced at his phone, a subtle flicker of something unreadable crossing his face. "Give me just a minute, babe," he said, setting his glass down on the table. "I need to freshen up." I nodded, not thinking much of it. It had been a long day, and I figured he just needed a moment to himself. He walked toward the bathroom, closing the door softly behind him. I wandered around the suite, trailing my fingers over the soft fabric of the couch and the polished surface of the dining table. My heart still felt light, full of hope and excitement for the future. This was the beginning of a new chapter for us, and I couldn't wait to see what life had in store. But as the minutes ticked by, I began to feel uneasy. The muffled sound of voices came from behind the bathroom door, low, hurried, and unmistakably two different tones. I frowned, stepping closer. "Marcus?" I called out, my voice uncertain. The voices stopped abruptly, and I heard the faint sound of movement. My heart began to race, a strange sense of dread creeping in. Slowly, I stepped closer to the bathroom door. It wasn't locked, and something compelled me to push it open, my pulse hammering in my ears. What I saw stopped me cold. Marcus was standing there, his hands gripping the shoulders of another man, a tall, lean white man with dark hair and piercing blue eyes. They were kissing, their movements frantic and desperate, as if they couldn't stop themselves. My breath caught in my throat, a sharp, involuntary sound that made both men freeze. Marcus turned to face me, his eyes wide with panic and something else. Guilt, maybe, or fear. The other man stepped back, adjusting his suit jacket, his expression unreadable. "Tamara," Marcus began, his voice hoarse. "This isn't..." But I couldn't hear the rest. The words didn't matter. The image was burned into my mind, vivid and undeniable. My champagne glass slipped from my fingers, shattering on the tiled floor, the sound loud enough to echo in the silence. "Tamara, let me explain," Marcus said, stepping toward me, but I held up a hand, stopping him in his tracks. "Don't," I whispered, my voice trembling. "Don't say another word." I backed out of the bathroom, my chest tightening with every step. The walls of the suite seemed to close in on me, the weight of what I'd just seen pressing down on me like a crushing wave. The man, his name, his story, his presence, none of it mattered. What mattered was the betrayal, the lies, the shattering of the trust I'd placed in Marcus. I stumbled into the bedroom, my legs shaky and weak. The bed, the champagne, the flowers, it all felt like a cruel joke now, mocking the love I thought we shared. Marcus followed me, his face pale and his hands outstretched, as if to calm me. "Tamara, please," he said, his voice breaking. "I can explain everything." I turned to him, my hands clenched into fists. "Explain what, Marcus? That you've been lying to me? That this whole marriage is a lie?" He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. The silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. I couldn't look at him anymore. I grabbed my phone from the bedside table and bolted toward the door, my vision blurred by tears. "Tamara, wait!" Marcus called after me, but I didn't stop. The elevator doors closed behind me, sealing me away from him and the life I thought we were building together. As the elevator descended, I pressed my hand to my chest, trying to steady my breathing. All I could feel was the ache of betrayal and the weight of a truth I hadn't been prepared to face. The elevator descended far too slowly for my liking. The smooth, silent glide of the car felt like a taunt, a cruel contrast to the storm of emotions raging inside me. My chest was tight, and my breathing came in sharp, shallow bursts. I clutched my phone in one hand, the other pressed against the cool metal wall, trying to ground myself in something tangible, something real. But nothing felt real anymore. When the doors finally opened, I stumbled out into the lavish hotel lobby. The grand chandeliers sparkled above me, their golden light bouncing off marble floors that seemed to stretch endlessly. Everything was pristine, perfect, except for me. I felt small, broken, and utterly out of place in this world of glamour and wealth. I needed air. I pushed through the revolving doors and stepped out onto the busy street. The cool night air hit my face, sharp and refreshing, but it did little to calm the chaos in my mind. The city was alive with lights and sounds, honking horns, laughter from nearby bars, the hum of conversations blending into a steady rhythm. But it all felt distant, like I was watching it from behind a thick pane of glass. I walked without a destination, my heels clicking against the pavement as I moved through the crowd. My thoughts were a tangled mess, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't make sense of what I'd seen. Marcus, my husband, my partner, the man I had promised to spend my life with, had kissed someone else. Not just anyone, a man. It wasn't just the betrayal that stung, it was the realization that I might not have known Marcus at all. The thought clawed at my chest, leaving a hollow ache in its wake. How could I have missed it? How could I have been so blind? I found myself on a quiet side street, far from the noise and chaos of the main road. A small bench sat beneath a flickering streetlight, and I sank onto it, my legs finally giving out. I stared down at my hands, the phone still clutched tightly in my grip. Should I call someone? Who would I even call? My family? My best friend? What would I say? Hi, I just caught my husband kissing another man, and now I'm sitting on a random bench in the middle of the city, trying to figure out what to do with my life. The thought of saying those words out loud made my throat tighten. I felt a tear slide down my cheek, hot and unrelenting. I wiped it away quickly, as if acknowledging it would make everything worse. A couple walked by, their laughter light and carefree. The woman leaned into the man, her face glowing with happiness, and he wrapped an arm around her protectively. I turned away, the sight cutting deeper than it should have. That should have been me. That was supposed to be my life. My phone buzzed in my hand, jolting me from my thoughts. I looked down to see Marcus's name flashing on the screen. My stomach twisted, and for a moment I considered throwing the phone into the gutter just to avoid facing him. But I didn't. Instead, I let it ring, watching as his name disappeared and was replaced by a missed call notification. A second later, a text came through. Tamara, please let me explain. I need to talk to you. Please. I stared at the words, my thumb hovering over the screen. Part of me wanted to block his number, to cut him out of my life entirely and never look back. But another part of me, the part that still remembered the way he had held my hand during our vows, the way he had kissed me that morning with so much love, wanted answers. I sighed, leaning back against the bench and closing my eyes. The events of the night played over and over in my mind, a relentless loop I couldn't escape. What would I do now? Could I forgive him? Did I even want to? I didn't have the answers, but one thing was clear. The life I thought I had was gone. And in its place was a raw, uncertain future I wasn't sure I was ready to face. For now, all I could do was sit there, alone in the quiet of the city, and let the weight of the truth settle around me. I don't know how long I sat on that bench, staring at nothing and everything all at once. The city moved around me, laughter from a nearby bar, the rhythmic footsteps of passers-by, the occasional honk of a car horn, all of it a distant hum, barely penetrating the storm inside my head. I read Marcus's text again. And again. Each time, the words felt heavier, dragging me deeper into a pit I wasn't sure I could climb out of. Please let me explain. What could he possibly explain? I had seen it with my own eyes. His lips on someone else's, the way his hands had gripped that man's shoulders like he was the center of his universe. I clenched my fists, feeling a surge of anger rise within me, not just at Marcus but at myself. How had I not seen this coming? How had I let myself fall so deeply, so blindly, into a life that wasn't even real? I thought about our wedding day just a week ago. Marcus had looked at me with so much love, his dark eyes sparkling as he promised to cherish me forever. I had believed him. I had believed every word, every kiss, every smile. Now those memories felt like cruel jokes, their sweetness tainted by the bitterness of betrayal. My phone buzzed again, pulling me out of my thoughts. Another text from Marcus. Tamara, please, just come back to the room. I need to explain everything. My chest tightened. The thought of facing him made my stomach churn, but at the same time, I felt an almost morbid curiosity. What could he possibly say to make this better? To undo the damage that had already been done? I stood up slowly, my legs stiff from sitting for so long. The night air was cooler now, a slight breeze brushing against my skin. I hugged myself, trying to ward off the chill that had settled deep in my bones. As I began walking back toward the hotel, I tried to prepare myself for what lay ahead. But how do you prepare for a conversation that could shatter the last fragments of your heart? The hotel lobby was quieter now, the earlier bustle replaced by a hushed stillness. My heels clicked against the marble floor as I made my way to the elevator, each step feeling heavier than the last. When I reached our suite, I hesitated. My hand hovered over the door handle, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure Marcus would hear it from the other side. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. Finally, I pushed the door open. The room was dimly lit, the soft glow of a bedside lamp casting long shadows across the walls. Marcus was sitting on the edge of the bed, his head in his hands. He looked up when I entered, his eyes filled with a mixture of relief and something I couldn't quite place. Guilt, maybe? Or fear? "Tamara," he said, standing up quickly. "Thank you for coming back." Don't, I interrupted, holding up a hand. My voice was steadier than I expected, but my heart was still racing. "Don't thank me, just tell me the truth, Marcus. All of it." He stared at me for a moment, his lips parting like he was about to speak, but no words came. The silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. I crossed my arms, my eyes narrowing. "Who is he?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. "And how long has this been going on?" Marcus flinched as if my words had physically struck him. He looked away, running a hand through his hair. "It's not what you think," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "Then tell me what it is," I demanded, my anger bubbling to the surface. "Because from where I'm standing it looks like my husband, my new husband, is in love with someone else." His shoulders slumped and he let out a shaky breath. "It's complicated," he said. I laughed bitterly, the sound harsh and foreign in the quiet room. "Complicated? That's your excuse?" "Marcus, I deserve better than that. I deserve the truth." He looked at me then, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "You're right," he said, his voice breaking. "You do deserve the truth, and I promise I'll tell you everything. Just, please don't leave yet, please." I stared at him, my emotions warring inside me. Part of me wanted to walk away, to leave him and his lies behind. But another part of me, curious, desperate for answers, kept me rooted in place. "Start talking," I said, my voice firm despite the ache in my chest. And so, he did. Marcus took a deep breath and slowly sat back down on the bed, his gaze dropping to the floor. The silence stretched, heavy and thick, as if he were choosing his words carefully, or maybe struggling to find the right ones. I stood there, my arms still crossed, waiting. "I never meant for it to happen, Tamara," he began, his voice softer now. "And I never wanted you to find out this way, but—" He paused, shaking his head, as if the weight of what he was about to say was too much to bear. I took a seat in the armchair across from him, my heart pounding in my chest. There was something in his eyes, an unmistakable mixture of guilt and regret, that made me freeze. A knot formed in my stomach. What could be so bad that he couldn't even look at me? "I don't know how to explain this," Marcus continued, his voice cracking slightly. "But before I met you there was someone else, someone I couldn't let go of. And even when we started dating, when we got married, I told myself it was over, that I had moved on. But the truth is—" He trailed off, running his fingers through his hair again, the frustration clear in his movements. The words were like shards of glass, cutting through the fragile trust I had built in this marriage. I didn't know what to say, or even what to think. I had thought I knew him. I had thought we were building something real, but this felt like a betrayal I wasn't sure I could recover from. "Who is she?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. I had to know, my stomach twisted with a mixture of anger and fear. Was I just some rebound to him? Was I never truly the one? Marcus finally met my gaze, his face filled with a mixture of shame and sorrow. "Her name is Julia," he said softly. "We were together for a while before I met you, and even though we broke up, I kept in touch with her. I thought I could just move on. I thought I could make it work with you." My breath caught in my throat as his words sank in. Julia, I had never heard that name before, but as the pieces began to fit together, I realized it wasn't just some casual fling. There was more to it. Something deeper, something long-lasting. The pain of that realization hit me like a wave, and I struggled to hold it together. "And you didn't think I should know about this?" I asked, my voice shaking now. "You didn't think I had the right to know that my husband was still involved with another woman?" Marcus's face flushed with embarrassment, and he hung his head. "I didn't want to hurt you, Tamara, but I did. I hurt you, and I'm sorry." I could hear the sincerity in his voice, but it wasn't enough. The damage had been done. The trust I had given him was gone, shattered by his own admissions. "So where does that leave us?" I asked, my words cold, though inside I was anything but. What are we now, Marcus? He hesitated, his fingers twitching nervously. I don't know, he admitted. I don't know how we move forward from here, but I want to try. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make this right. Ha ha ha, I laughed bitterly, the sound of it foreign to my own ears. Make it right? You think you can fix this? I shook my head in disbelief. You've lied to me, Marcus. You've lied to my face, and now you want to fix it with a few words? His eyes were filled with desperation now. I love you, Tamara. I do, and I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't know how to fix this, but I'm willing to try. Please, don't walk away from me. The words hung in the air between us, suspended in a space that felt too tight for all the emotions I was struggling with. Part of me wanted to scream at him, to tell him to leave and never come back. But another part of me, one that still loved him, no matter how deeply he had hurt me, was screaming for something else. But I couldn't ignore the reality of the situation. Could I stay with someone who had kept this secret from me? Someone who had built an entire life with me while still holding on to another? I didn't know if I could. I don't know if I can forgive you, Marcus, I said quietly, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. I don't know if I can forget what you've done. He looked crushed, his face paling as if my words had struck him like a physical blow. But I couldn't stop now. I needed to make him understand the depth of the hurt he had caused. I need time, I said, my voice shaky. I need to figure out what this means for me. For us. Marcus nodded slowly, the sadness in his eyes palpable. I'll give you all the time you need, Tamara. I won't rush you. Just know that I want to make things right. I'll do whatever it takes to prove to you that I love you. But as I turned to leave the room, I felt a deep ache in my chest. I wasn't sure what the future held anymore. What was left of us? Could love really survive this kind of betrayal? And if I chose to stay, how would I ever trust him again? I didn't know the answer, but for the first time in a long time, I was no longer sure about the man I had married. The days that followed were a blur of confusion and unanswered questions. Marcus gave me space as promised, but the silence between us was almost suffocating. We spoke only when absolutely necessary, and even then, the conversations were strained. His attempts to apologize seemed hollow, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the trust I once had for him was slipping further away with each passing moment. I spent long hours sitting in the living room, staring out the large windows of our apartment, trying to sort through the mess of emotions swirling inside me. The city below seemed so far removed from the chaos in my mind. Every corner of our home felt tainted by Marcus's betrayal. I couldn't look at the couch, where we had shared so many quiet moments without seeing him with her, even if only in my imagination. The love I had once felt seemed so distant now, replaced with a cold, gnawing emptiness. I couldn't look at the couch where we had shared so many quiet moments without seeing him with her, even if only in my imagination. The love I had once felt seemed so distant now, replaced with a cold, gnawing emptiness. I tried to busy myself, diving into work, reaching out to old friends I hadn't spoken to in a while, but nothing could fill the void. I had always been independent, but this isolation was different. It was like a part of me had been ripped away, leaving me with nothing but the echo of what we had once shared. One evening I went out with a few friends, hoping a change of scenery might help clear my head. The laughter and chatter around me felt so foreign, as if I were on the outside looking in. They could see it on my face, the tension in my shoulders, the way my eyes darted from person to person without really focusing on anything. But I didn't want to talk about it. Not yet. As I sat there, swirling my drink absent-mindedly, I felt a sudden wave of exhaustion wash over me. Not just physical fatigue, but something deeper, like I was being drained from the inside out. The weight of everything was catching up with me. How had things gotten this far? And more importantly, could I ever forgive Marcus? I didn't have the answers. All I knew was that something had broken, and I couldn't just glue the pieces back together. Not yet. The next day, I woke up with a strange heaviness in my chest. The room felt colder than usual, as though the warmth between Marcus and me had evaporated overnight. I hadn't heard him leave for work, nor had I heard him come back the night before. It was as if he was deliberately creating more distance between us. I didn't know if it was a good thing or a bad one. but it left me feeling even more lost. I tried to convince myself that I should talk to him, confront him about everything. The betrayal, the silence, the broken trust, it all needed to be laid bare, but a part of me still wasn't ready to face him fully. It wasn't about him, not entirely. It was about me and how I had let myself fall into this false sense of security, only to have it all ripped away. I was still processing the depth of my own hurt, and I couldn't bring myself to put it into words yet. After a few hours of lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, I decided to go out for a walk. I needed to clear my head. I threw on my jacket, grabbed my keys, and left without telling Marcus where I was going. The streets were calm for a late afternoon, the light soft and golden, the sky clear, but the tranquility did nothing to ease the storm inside me. As I walked, I found myself returning to the same question that had been haunting me for days. How could Marcus have done this? How could someone who claimed to love me, who promised me a future, have chosen that moment to betray everything we had built? I tried not to think about it, but the images of him with her, the kiss, kept resurfacing. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was furious. That's when I saw him. Marcus. He was standing by the park bench, his back to me, but I recognized him immediately. My heart raced, a wave of emotions flooding my chest, anger, betrayal, confusion. I wanted to approach him, demand answers, but I froze. I stayed hidden behind a nearby tree, watching him, trying to gather my thoughts. He was standing there on his phone, looking so calm, so unaffected by the storm he had created in our lives. I wanted to confront him then and there, but something stopped me. The truth was, I was scared. Scared of what he would say. Scared of the reality that I might not be able to fix this, no matter how much I wanted to. The distance between us felt like a chasm, one I wasn't sure I could cross. I took a deep breath, turned and walked away. By the time I returned to the apartment, the silence in the air was almost suffocating. Marcus wasn't home yet, and I couldn't decide if I was relieved or if it made me feel even more alone. His absence gave me space to think, but my mind was clouded with so many emotions that it only made things worse. I sat down on the couch, staring at the empty space where we had once laughed together, where we had shared our hopes and dreams. Now, everything felt like a lie. It had been days since the confrontation, but neither of us had addressed it directly. Marcus had stayed out late at work the previous evening, not even bothering to ask if I was okay. I had expected him to come home and say something, anything, to at least try to fix things, but the man I thought I knew seemed to have vanished, leaving only the stranger I didn't recognize. I grabbed my phone, hesitating before unlocking it. I scrolled through the messages from friends, family, even work, but not one from Marcus. That was when I realized how much I had been waiting for him to make the first move. It was always like that, wasn't it? He was always the one who could stay calm, who could avoid the confrontation while I spiraled into uncertainty. Maybe it was easier for him to pretend everything was okay. Maybe he thought I'd just forgive him without ever addressing what had happened. The front door creaked open, and I stiffened. Marcus stepped inside, looking tired, his coat hanging loosely from his shoulders. He looked at me briefly, but didn't say a word. He walked past me, heading straight for the kitchen without even acknowledging my presence. I swallowed the lump in my throat and stood up. "Marcus," I said, my voice shaking slightly. He didn't stop or turn to face me. "We need to talk." He paused, his back to me. For a moment I thought he wouldn't respond, but then he spoke without turning around. "I don't have anything to say." His words hit me harder than I expected. I wasn't sure if I was angry or just defeated. My heart pounded in my chest as I fought the urge to cry. "You don't have anything to say?" I repeated, my voice growing louder, more desperate. "After everything, after what you did." He finally turned to face me, but his expression was unreadable, distant. "I don't know what you want from me, Leah." I felt my chest tighten. "I want honesty. I want to know why you did it. Why her?" For a long moment he didn't speak. The silence between us stretched on, heavy and uncomfortable. I could see the struggle in his eyes, as if he were weighing his words carefully, but nothing came. It was like he was locked inside his own thoughts, too afraid or too ashamed to speak. Finally he sighed. "I don't know why. I messed up, okay? I don't know how to fix it." It wasn't the apology I was hoping for, It wasn't the accountability I needed. And yet there it was, his admission of guilt, though it felt hollow, like an empty confession meant to end the conversation, not to fix anything. I stared at him, trying to find any sign of the man I had loved so deeply, but all I saw was a stranger. I shook my head, feeling a wave of sadness wash over me. I don't think you can fix this, Marcus. I don't even know if I want you to. With those words, the tears I had been holding back for days finally started to fall. I turned away, wiping my face quickly, not wanting to give him the satisfaction of seeing me break down. But in the pit of my stomach, I knew we were past the point of no return, and the man standing in front of me wasn't the person I had married. "You can't keep pretending," I whispered. "Not this time." He didn't respond. He just stood there, watching me, his face a mixture of guilt and confusion. But I was done waiting for him to fix it. I was done trying to hold us together. Some things were broken beyond repair. The days that followed were a blur of silence. Marcus and I passed each other like ghosts in our own home. We no longer shared meals, no longer laughed at inside jokes, and there was no tenderness in the way he looked at me. It felt like we were both trapped in a house full of echoes, each room reminding me of the love we once had,